digital IDs and their impact on digital economy development.
Everybody, welcome today to this panel discussion about digital IDs. It is a very wide topic because it can entail everything from KYC to the digital format. With me on today's panel, I have the pleasure of having Amor Maclang, who is one of the leading entrepreneurs in the digital economy in the region. She's also the CEO of Guys and Maclang, a leading ad agency. I have here with me Stephanie Tower from nChain, which is a leading blockchain company. I have Penny here from, Penny Chai here from SumSub. People know the towering main provider of KYC solutions in the world. And I have Lawrence Ferrer, who's the CIS for Bayad, which is one of the leading payment providers and facilitators also for the region. So thank you to my four panelists for attending today. Digital IDs, as I said, is a very wide thing. Where do you think it's going to go from here? If we may start with you, Amor, please.
Of course, thank you. First and foremost is hello to everyone who I know you guys are streaming, and thank you so much to Olga for putting this together and creating an alternative voice on nascent tech. Now, something we feel very strongly about both in Digital Pilipinas, which is the largest private sector-led movement in the country, and in the International Digital Economies Association, is how do we reframe data and also national ID, not in terms of just protection, but in terms of data ownership. Our premise is very basic. We are primarily poor, not because there's no money, but because people do not own their data. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I think that's going to make for an interesting discussion, especially when you have, say, major financial institutions blocking people from owning their own data. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So if we pass that on to you, Stephanie, how do you feel that a company like yours or the strategy that your company entails is trying to make that work in the digital economy? Because I think what Amor is referring to is that not everybody can perhaps have a strong online identity that somebody like SumSub are able to verify very quickly. What's the blockchain solution and how do you guys go about that?
All right, thank you for the question and thank you for inviting me over here at AIBC. So nChain is a global blockchain leader in application solutions and licensing as well. We also provide consultancy. So we're very big on digital identity, and we believe that it is what will drive us forward to an actual digital ecosystem. And that includes not only financial inclusion, as we often hear about when we talk about all of this, when I talk about this industry, but it goes beyond that. Trust is important in any aspect of our lives, right? And part of digital identity is providing that framework of trust, which has always been there in our society. You remember when we do trade 100 years ago, we just trust that the identity of the person is the real person we are doing transaction with. So now that we're moving from physical world to digital world, we would like to be able to do the same thing physically, digitally. And our company, I know we were not supposed to talk about our products here, but in essence, what's happening right now is we create digital identity in order for every citizen, or even, actually identity is not only for people. Sometimes it's also for businesses, IoT devices. You issue identity to all of these things because that everything makes up for an entire digital ecosystem. So let me maybe stop for that for now and expand further.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Penny, because SumSub is the leading provider around the world for KYC online. How does SumSub go about digital identities, especially in light of the fact that not everybody might have a passport? They might not have a, let's say, 100% verified address that's registered in some central database, especially if they're trying to do something in another country.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm from SumSub. And we specialize in making sure that our digital identity is safe, and fraudsters cannot get to us much more easily than we should. With the digital space of the future coming on, fast and furious. SumSub has evolved actually. All the way from these 9 years, we've evolved from being a KYC company. We are now a one platform company, because we believe that giving you the safety in the fraud identity prevention is key. Like what Stephanie had mentioned, trust is key. And if you can trust the platform that you're onboarding, like Bayad, then you will be able to transact safely and happily. We in SumSub believe in one verification platform where we help our clients to be able to protect their identity from onboarding all the way through the life cycle of that personality. And this we do by preventing fraud as well as protecting the identity. And with this, I will leave it at this point, and then we can continue later.
Thank you very much. Lawrence, over to you then. How does somebody like Bayad apply this, whereby you are, as a company, are able to engage with clients, customers, with a digital ID, without, as Penny was addressing, the issue of fraud?
Well, thank you. Just a little background, Bayad has been doing bills payment for more than 20 years. We've built a brand that is both reliable and trusted. And at this point, we are now the market leader. We see that for the industry to evolve and mature, it requires a lot of collaboration. Just to share with you, I've been approached by different fintechs, different FIs, with the intention of taking advantage of the bills payment data that we've accumulated over the years. So we see that for us to be able to achieve a level of scale and have any impactful results, it's about us being able to share data, provided we secure data consent. So this is very important to us. Our business is both on-site and online, and I can attest that people that go through our physical stores still lack IDs for reasons that it's not available, and there's no impetus for them to get. So any form of opportunity to be able to collaborate with industry leaders can really help the country in general. Thank you.
So the question becomes, on this basis, is ID the way forward also for payments? Like if you have like an Apple ID, let's be honest and think about it. The Apple ID is essentially attached to your phone, and then they, as a company, have done some presumable KYC around that via data verification, or is it like physical ID? Because I know, Stephanie, you have a very strong opinion about standard KYC from the banks. Would you like to elaborate on that?
For me, I believe that, and I think it's important for us to understand that just because there's a new trend or a new technology, that doesn't mean it will totally replace what we already have, right? And as regards to KYC, a lot of people think, like, for example, us, blockchain. Some people would probably assume that, you don't need to KYC anymore because you only need to verify information. But at the end of the day, blockchain or technology is just a tool. We still need to follow the rules of the land, the jurisdiction itself. So, for example, if you wanna, let's say biometrics is part of KYC, right? If you want a strong bind to a human towards identity, right? To connect it to an actual identity, yes, you can use biometrics. If you really want it, you want to make sure that that certain identity is related to the person who claims who they are. So it's all right, you can use biometrics for that. But it depends, again, identity is rooted on the issuance of credentials, all right, is rooted on the issuing authority. So in the context of the Philippines, it is the PSA. So they provide the national identity. So only them can dictate whether this digital identity is in fact issued and authenticated by them, which you can then use as a form of your identity for government services whatsoever. The same way that a corporation can issue their own set of rules when it comes to issuing identity. So it depends on who is the issuing authority and what it is for. And it depends on the requirements, the data sets that they want to set, or the mechanism, the privacy or security mechanisms they want to set up.
Okay, I know, Amor, you have a very strong opinion about, and you've seen how identities are growing in the digital space in the region. What's your take on where it's going from here?
Maybe I think two things, especially given that we have the DICT and our champions in the NICP here who can probably help advocate it. Number one, here in the Philippines, imagine a scenario we're in. If you needed to get your own bank information and bank data, you have to go to a bank and pay 150 pesos for every page of your own data, right? So that sounds incredulous. It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually happening in this country. Now, we're currently in talks right now with Digital India. You know that the basis for our digital ID is actually the Aadhaar, right? And in August, we in Digital Pilipinas in IDEA, guys, relax, it's just us. Thank you. So it's just Torben. So listen, the thing is about Digital India, they really set what digital ID ought to be in the global majority, of which we're a part of, right? And what we've seen there is the ability of people to own their data and technology. I think this is something that my dear friend Steph ought to be working in nChain. How do we create a digital locker counterpart for the Philippines, wherein instead of it an issuing body owning the identity, is we own it and we can choose to give the keys to whoever we want to give it to. So if India has done it for 1.2 billion people, why can't we do it for us, which is just, 115 or so?
Yeah, I think that's the 100 that was missing in India. I think they're 1.3 overnight. So there we go. Penny, what's your take on where this can go in terms of the technology behind it? What will be able to drive this, whereby people who are, let's say, financially not in a situation, they might be in the countryside or something like that, for them to also get on and get into the digital economy?
Thank you. Right. So, like what Amor and Stephanie had mentioned, technology has evolved, but in fast-moving economy like Philippines, there are many types of users, right? There are those that are technology savvy. There are those that are catching up. There are those who are clueless. Now, SumSub is here to help to be very inclusive to everyone. So if you are someone trying to get into Bayad, or you are someone who wants to be able to own your identity, what we do in our space is to ensure that the identity management, the identity onboarding is completely customizable to the land of the law and to the company, based on risk averseness of the company, as well as to the national identity of Philippines, for example. As long as you can actually customize the onboarding journey, customize the risk adversity of the national level all the way to the company level, you are able to protect the entity. Now, protecting the entity is only one part of the story. How do people in the environment are able to access the identity and own it, and like what Amor says, be able to give permission for people to use it based on their preference, right? So what we do here is to ensure that the identity journey is so smooth, so easy, that anyone, whether you are literate, illiterate, or IT savvy, you will be able to access the platform as long as the platform is using SumSub and they have customized their customer experience based on their requirement of that entity.
Thank you very much, Penny. Lawrence, over to you. How does Bayad engage with that? Because you must have customers of very different types in big cities or in rural areas where you might not be able to verify addresses, etc. How do you go about this? How big challenge on the fraud side? What do you do to engage and avoid this?
For Bayad, the challenge has always been the migration of people that do physical payments to online. And I echo the points raised by Amor that the intention really is for customers want to build a level of trust with regards to the provider. At the same time, to make it easy for them to KYC. We've taken a stance where we look at different platforms, partners, valued partners that are willing to extend these type of solutions to Bayad. I think the intention here is that we'd like to co-own the customers and provide them with more access to financial services. And the only way to do that is to be able to have a mindset where everyone can contribute and share. For Bayad, we cover millions, at times tens of millions of bills payment transactions across multiple verticals, utilities, electric, water, tolls, etc., etc. This is a good basis, in fact, to provide alternative credit. And we're willing to be able to extend those services, those insights to partners, and that the intention is that we make them part of the ecosystem and we grow as a group.
So you're saying that essentially you are creating a digital ID in terms of the behavior and scoring of the user. Is that correct?
Yes. The intention has always been being able to capture payment behavior, transactional behavior, will effectively allow any partners, valued partners, to take advantage and score them and provide them other financial solutions that the customers might find relevant. And I think that's the only way to grow and improve and scale up.
This is very interesting because there's this book by a leading scientist from Britain called David Birch. The book is called Identity is the New Money. And essentially, this book is 10 years old. And it describes that in the future, when you read the book, it's very short. It's only 100 pages. It describes exactly what you are addressing there, Lawrence, that in the future, people will not be, hello, I'm Torben Friis, this is my passport. Instead, it will be, hi, I'm an Instagram 123 Banana Republic, And then people say, oh, you're the 123 Instagram guy. And then the next moment, you will be somebody else over on Bayad. How do you, as panel members here, see this developing? Amor, for instance, how do you see that the digital ID that might move away from just a passport, but based on what Lawrence was saying, that is based on your behavior online, that might progress?
Actually, I want to take it a step further. I've been in, rightly or wrongly, I've seen technologies in Moscow, for example, wherein they primarily use biometrics. And I think it's going to move away from a general issuing body. You know me, I'm very rabid about data ownership. And it will move from a general issuing body to people being able to control it using biometrics. In India, for example, how they made it so successful is if they've lowered the filters. It's just primarily just 1, 2, or 3. Plus iris and fingerprinting, right?
So when you say
that
lowering
is, I think,
when you say
lower the
lowering the
number of
filters.
filters. Like, I think here, how many things are in our national ID? I think there are excluding our horoscope. I don't know, or first love. So maybe it excludes that, but in India, I think they've limited it to 1 or 2 items plus biometrics. And I'm seeing now technology trends in certain regions, like in Central Asia, the CIS region, where it's purely biometrics. They can even tell you if it's your shadow. So I think that's the movement. That's a direction, not so much in the gadgets.
And Stephanie, since you're on the blockchain side,
Yeah, so let me just correct some of Amor's, because it happens as well. You're correct in some of the assets, but what is happening around and some of the trends happening, there's such a thing as self-sovereign identity, and it's blockchain-based, right? And yes, identity is often rooted to the issuing authority, but that doesn't mean that just because there's an issuing authority, you cannot own your data anymore. So what's happening with us at nChain is that the digital identity that we created, or the solution, management solution that we have, or system that we have created, it is of course, it enables issuing authorities to issue credentials, all right? But at the same time, it enables users to own their credentials. That means that, for example, if I want to make a transaction, let's say it requires an 18-year-old or a 60-year-old citizen, a senior citizen, right, to make a transaction or to get a discount. The data, the digital identity, he can do like selective data disclosure, right? People don't need to know where she lives or where she's from or what's the blood type. They only need to know if is a 60-year-old who is entitled of this discount. So these are the things that enables digital identity or users through the technology that we are using. And it means that because of blockchain as well, we can now do things that we would not do before. Before issuing authority, let's say Google, if you're signed on and log in on Google, your data footprint is recorded wherever you go. But let's say with nChain identity, you're not. Wherever you go, they could not track your footprint because it is your ownership.
so over to you as the last one on this one, Penny. How is it then over at somebody like SumSub? How do you manage that? Are you preparing to enter into a world where it will be digital ID that is not based on KYC, that in the classic biometric sense, but rather on online behavior, or how does that look?
Right. So that's a very interesting concept, and so from Amor as well. And this is actually what we have actually observed as well. Hence, we have actually evolved SumSub to be able to embrace all of these trends, right? So one of the things that we do now is that we allow our customers who has used SumSub to onboard an identity. They can actually make use of our captured biometric face that SumSub has actually captured and authenticate the customer to come back for essential services. For example, if you are doing a withdrawal, you want to make sure it's safe, you will use your biometric to check one more time, right? We also now enabled a non-doc verification. That means right now you don't really need to have your physical document that was issued by the government, right? Back to India, like what Amor has mentioned, India has now digital identity database where they allow vendors like us to use the database to verify the customer. So that eliminates the fraud of manipulating your ID. And on top of it, they also provide back the face. So in taking the face of the person, we are able to compare the face physically as well as with the other database, and that will then identify the customers more safely, more accessible, and also very inclusive, which means someone that is in the province will be able to use this technology much more easier as well. So biometric is one area to ensure that the identity is safe. And the second area in which is to make sure that your database is actually part of the issuance database, and you can make use of that. We can also allow our customers, for example, if Bayad, for Lawrence, he had mentioned that he wants to provide the accessibility and the ability to be part of the ecosystem. So in SumSub, we are able to help entities like Bayad to do a shareable, reusable ID, but based on the permission of the owner of the identity, right? So
This is
that's another technology that you can embrace.
This is very helpful. And I think that's also what it's all leading on to for people to consider. Oh, whenever I speak, they get so excited. I'm sorry about it, you know. So what is happening is, of course, that when you have a digital ID, and I think that's what all of our panel attendees are addressing, it's a question of the data that's also available about you online, right? So the question is, of course, you know, what happens to your digital ID online? You know, there is the element of, is the data that is not only based on biometrics, but also, let's say, your online behavior, your past trustworthy transactions or whatever comes along with that. But it also naturally requires what is there from, let's say, is there a central system that's logical from the government, as Amor was mentioning in India, right? Because that is really a system that has been able to be applied blanket wide. Now, we don't have so much time left, so we will give the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions to our panel attendees, if you'd like, and then we can take that forward. If you will raise your hand, I will address this to one of you in a moment. So while people, they gather their ideas, I just want to ask the panel attendees, how does it work with digital ID? Do you believe it's going to be a future that will be purely based around something like your telephone, or will it rather be something like blockchain based, or is it going to be a combination with a central authority like the government? Amor, what's your gut feeling about this? I think they've turned off all the microphones. I think we need Amor's microphone on.
Yes. One word, biometrics. I think it'll move towards biometrics, and it's really all moving towards data ownership. And whoever will recognize this first will actually have first mover advantage. Thank you.
Stephanie, is your microphone working? No.
For me, it's intersection of technologies, right? So biometrics to make sure that the identity is really linked to the actual human. If it's human identity, if it's not, it could be things, right? But it's also going to be blockchain based because it's going to future proof the identity itself. It means that there may be some services, applications, or solutions that may not be possible today, but possible in the future. But that doesn't mean that you have to create an entire identity system again. If you build it on a blockchain, then you allow it to be interoperable to not just current systems, but also the future.
Right. For me, definitely biometrics is one of them. But what we look at is a piece of what you own, biometric, and a piece of what you know, which could be your mother's maiden name, right? So those are two areas where we could use to protect the identity and as well as to verify the identity. On top of it, SumSub is now able to verify if there is a money muse, account takeover, and all kinds of device fingerprint as well. So that will be able to help to also identify the behavioral intelligence of the person. So like what Stephanie had mentioned, technology is here to stay and also here to evolve. And we will definitely embrace that to ensure that the identity of people are safe and trusted.
One word, co-ownership. Co-ownership with consent. The Philippines has over 300 fintechs, excluding banks, rural banks, cooperatives, and utilities, over 2,000 utilities, and government, and even the telcos. So we're talking about people that have information about their customers. Imagine if all of them are interconnected, where people can share information so that they could access financial services or any other type of solutions that they have, since information about their identity, information about their payment behavior is already captured. that will make scale exponential. And I think that requires two things. It requires visionary leaders to be able to band the industry together like Amor. And at the same time, you need a strong regulatory body that can push and mandate the industry to band together. That's it. Thank you.
Well, actually, we're out of time now, so I would like to say thank you very much for our panel attendees. Thank you to the audience, and everybody have a very successful conference. Thank you.